What is up, everyone? My name is Kel, Red Zone MTG, and today we have another top 10 video. Today's video is going over my top 10 favorite cards for Core Set 2020, or M20 if you'd like to call it, and specifically my top 10 favorite cards for the Oathbreaker format, and I guess a little bit of Commander here and there, but mostly Oathbreaker because I know you are here to hear about Oathbreaker. Speaking of Oathbreaker, my first card is Mu Yanling, Sky Dancer. I think she is a really sweet planeswalker. She's a 3-drop, 1 of any, double blue, 2 starting loyalty, legendary planeswalker Yanling with gorgeous artwork. She's going to be a really cool looking foil in my opinion. Her +2 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 and loses flying, so a little bit of protection there, and also loses flying I think is important. She has a -3 of create a 4/4 blue elemental bird creature token with flying, and a -8 of you get an emblem with islands you control have tap draw a card, which is ridiculous, but we're probably never going to get to 8. I think she is a really cool Oathbreaker for like a blue skies or blue flying men style deck. I don't think she's like super broken or, you know, incredibly powerful. I just think she's really cool, really flavorful, and I'm definitely going to make a mono blue, you know, skies style deck with her. So definitely expect a video of that on the channel in the near future. Next up we have the Cavalier of Night. Probably my favorite of the Cavalier cycle. I do really like the Cavalier cycle in general. The Cavalier of Night is a 5-drop. I think they're all 5-drops. Triple black, 2 of any creature elemental knight. He's a 4/5 with lifelink. When he enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target creature and opponent controls. And then when he dies, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Other than having like one of the sickest artworks I've ever seen, once again, this guy's going to be really cool in foil. I just really like this card for Commander. I have a mono black sacrifice Liliana themed deck. It's kind of like a Liliana mostly themed deck, but with a lot of sacrifice elements, and I think the Cavalier of Night is going to be a slam dunk into the deck, and I think it's going to be pretty good in some other decks as well, maybe like Muldrotha and that kind of stuff. Maybe even like Teysa or Yarek or something. In any case, I think he's really awesome. I wouldn't blame you for picking any of the other Cavaliers, specifically the red one is pretty cool, but Cavalier Knight is my personal favorite. Next up, we have another really sweet black card with Scheming Symmetry. Shout out to Seb McKinnon for this weird and awesome artwork. It is a sorcery for a single black. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts it on top. So this is actually a kind of symmetrical vampiric tutor kind of effect. I think this card is really cool in multiplayer formats. You can kind of do some politicking and maybe trick your opponent to getting a card that'll help you in the long run. Maybe like, you know, I'm going to play this Scheming Symmetry. Would you go get a board wipe so we can all live kind of deal? And, you know, I also like this in mill decks. I think this in, like, Oathbreaker, for example, and an Ashiok mill deck can be really sweet. You can choose 2 target players. You know, each player picks a thing, and then you immediately mill their card, which is awesome. I actually pre-ordered a good number of these when they were really cheap on pre-sale because I think this is a card that has some definite potential, and I don't mind paying like $2 for them. I think they're already going up, so yeah, Scheming Symmetry I think is really sweet. Next up, we're going to continue the black train with Soren, Imperiaz Bloodlord. I think he's probably the most powerful planeswalker for Oathbreaker in this set. He is a 3-drop legendary planeswalker Soren, 2 of any, and a black, 4 starting loyalty. He has a +1 of target creature you control gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. If it's a vampire, put a +1/+1 counter on it. He has another +1 of you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do when you do, Soren Imperiaz Bloodlord deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And he has a -3 of, you know, you can do this immediately when you play him. You may put a vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That is awesome. For 3 mana, basically, you can put any vampire right onto the field, and there's some really sweet high-drop vampires like Butcher of Malakir, the OG Kalidas, Thief of Blood, Patron of the Vein. These are cards that I all have in my Edgar Markov Commander deck, and I think I can kind of convert that deck into a really sweet Oathbreaker deck with Soren, Imperiaz Bloodlord at the helm, and I think it'll be quite powerful. I think it'll be, you know, he's definitely one of the contenders for strongest Oathbreakers in recent memory, honestly. Next up, we have Chandra's Regulator. This is a really cool legendary artifact for 1 of any and a red. Whenever you activate a loyalty ability of a Chandra planeswalker, you may pay 1. If you do, copy that ability. You may choose new copies for, or you may choose new targets for the copy, and then you can pay 1 and tap it and discard a mountain or a red card and draw a card. So this kind of has a loot Remage type ability, but you can also copy the loyalty abilities of your Chandras. I think this card is a slam dunk for any Chandra Oathbreaker deck, and if you've seen the videos on my channel, you do know I have a Chandra Torch of Defiance Oathbreaker deck, and I'm going to be putting one of these directly into it. I think this card is excellent. I think it's really cool and flavorful, and I think it sets some groundwork for some really cool potential things that they can do in the future, like themed around very specific planeswalkers. Next up, we have Elvish Reclaimer. He is a elf warrior, 1/2 for a single green. He gets +2/+2 as long as there are 3 or more land cards in your graveyard, which is pretty good. So he can be a 3/4 for 1. Not too bad, especially for Oathbreaker, but he has this really cool ability. You can pay 2 and tap him and sack a land and search your library for any land card and put it directly onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. You know what I see when I see this? I see Dark Depths. And if you've seen my videos, you know that I really like Dark Depths. I'm sure there's a ton of other applications with this card. I mean, this guy's going right into my Yarek, the Veil Cursed, Yarek Relentless Oathbreaker deck, because I do have the Dark Depths combo in that deck, and I think this card kind of just fits right on in. I'm sure this is also a slam dunk in Wrenn and 6 if you have a Wrenn and 6 Oathbreaker deck, or even for like Commander. This card is super sweet. I like it a lot. Being able to tutor your deck for any land and slapping it right into play is pretty good. I mean, it comes into play tapped, but I mean, sometimes it doesn't really matter. Leyline of Abundance is our next card and the only Leyline on my list, mostly because I'm not covering any reprints here, and there's only 2 new Leylines, but this green one is actually super sweet. Enchantment for 2 of any, double green, but if it's in your opening hand, you can begin the game with it on the battlefield. And then it says, whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green mana. So this is really powerful with your mana dorks. So if you have a big, rampy, splashy kind of commander deck or Oathbreaker deck, maybe trying to ramp into a Craterhoof Behemoth or something like that, this really helps you, and it encourages you to play mana dorks instead of a lot of land ramp or artifact ramp like you see in the formats. And then it has this other ability of 6 and double green, and you get to put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, which is pretty good. You know, it gives you a reason to generate a lot of mana and dump it into something. It's not the best use of 8 mana, but you know, if you have nothing else to do, you can still pump up your Llanowar Elves and get him for some damage. Next up, I have a card specifically for Commander with Yarek the Desecrated. He is a legendary creature, elemental horror for 2 of any, black, a green, and a blue. And I say specifically for Commander because we do not have the Sultai colors in Oathbreaker yet, so this can only be basically used in Commander. It has Death Touch, Lifelink, and if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So it's kind of like Panharmonicon, but a little bit better. I know there's a ton of busted stuff you can do with this guy, and I'm slapping him right into my Muldrotha deck. I'm not even going to like think about the potential combos that I have. He's just going to go right on in because he's going to have so much value potential with the deck that I currently already have without even having to like build around him. And I can probably tweak the deck a little bit to build around him a little bit and get a lot of value and a lot of synergy with him. Next up, we have Icon of Ancestry. It is a 3-drop artifact. As Icon of Ancestry enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. And then it has another ability, 3 of any mana, and you tap it, and you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you can reveal a creature card of the chosen type from among them, put it in your hand, and then you put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So this is a huge tribal synergy card. I think this is a slam dunk for basically any tribal deck. So, you know, Oathbreaker and Commander players rejoice. There's not a whole lot of tribal stuff going on in Oathbreaker right now. And there's some elves, there's some vampires. We already talked about vampires. Maybe some goblins, but there's definitely a lot of tribal stuff going on in Commander, and I think this card is easy, kind of easy win most slam for those decks. It's not the best. It's not, you know, coat of arms or anything like that, but I think it's really cool. Gives you card advantage and pumps your dudes up. And finally, we have Lotus Field. This is my favorite card of the whole set. It is a land with hexproof. It enters the battlefield tapped. When it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice 2 lands, but you can tap it to add 3 mana of any one color, and I'm jamming this in so many decks. I just bought 3 up front because I have a feeling they're going to be worth more than $10 in the long run. It might go down here and there, but I think in the long run, I will, you know, spending $9 per card, I don't think I'm going to be losing that much with Lotus Field. The fact that I have hexproof is really good. It might be borderline unplayable if it didn't, because so many people I know run Wasteland and Strip Mine. Do have to sack 2 lands when it comes into play, but they don't have to be tapped lands, so you can tap the lands first for mana and then play Lotus Field. Not to mention putting this in any like land strategy style deck like Lord Windgrace, Wrenn and 6. I think this is just fantastic card. Probably going to be the big runaway card of the whole set in like 2 years. Alright guys, that was my top 10 favorite cards of M20. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I will see you guys next time for some more Magic the Gathering content. We've got some Oathbreaker stuff and some Commander stuff coming on the horizons. I'll see you guys later.